God of War Laufey, the latest installment in the long-running franchise that just got unveiled at Sony's State of Play event a couple of days ago. A game that's already stirred up the fanbase and the entire gaming internet into a firestorm of rage and backlash, and seems destined to do for the God of War franchise what Furiosa did for the Mad Max saga. Why? Well, it's simple really. It's a God of War game that doesn't actually have the God of War in it.
God of War, because we're not getting God of War. We're getting God of War's wife.
What a story, Mark.
So people are a little upset that instead of getting a new God of War game, they're getting God of War subverted expectations.
This God of War thing, people have been, God of Laundry, the rinse and repeat epic. This is really, I think there's a couple more of these, right? And yeah, here it is.
He's home.
Man.
I better clean up before Kratos comes home.
This is the story of how Sony built an entire God of War game and somehow forgot to put the God of War inside it.
Even Domino's Pizza releases more sense with their pizza takes than a game studio does. God of War Laundry. The cube is replaced with a washing machine, and the sword is replaced with some f***ing laundry detergent. Boys, we are so back.
On June 2nd, 2026, Santa Monica Studio closed out PlayStation's State of Play with their next big swing, God of War Laufey. And within hours, the internet had decided the whole thing was a punchline. Not the flattering kind either. The kind where Domino's Pizza wanders into your comments to roast you, and your response somehow digs the hole deeper. What follows is why fans soured on this game faster than Kratos sours on a Greek god, why the memes flooding your timeline are completely earned, and why the studio's own defense might be the single most awkward chapter of the entire mess. The pitch goes like this. Kratos does not lead the next mainline God of War, and instead the spotlight lands on Faye, sometimes called Laufey or Laufey the Just, who happens to be Kratos' late second wife and the mother of Atreus. That name should land hard, because losing Faye is the entire reason the modern God of War exists in the first place. Back in the 2018 game, she appears as a corpse and nothing more, her one narrative job being to be gone so the men around her could haul her ashes up a mountain and process their feelings about it. Now she carries the whole game. Waking up in a brand new realm called the Everywhen, Faye anchors a story the studio proudly bills as the first fully original setting across 21 years of this franchise. Strip away the marketing gloss and that boast means something blunt, which is that this is the first God of War not built on Greek or Norse mythology anyone actually recognizes. They stopped retelling a myth and started inventing one, then asked players to care about it from minute one. Voicing Faye is Deborah Ann Woll from Daredevil Born Again, and the combat itself looks quicker and more acrobatic, packed with magic and swordplay. The wheels come off when they trot out the companions. Allow me to introduce Phranque. Phranque happens to be a talking cube, voiced by Jack Quaid of The Boys, and he instantly became the most savage thing in the entire reveal. 20 hours after the trailer dropped, this cube had already earned his own Know Your Meme entry, because people watched a God of War teaser, clocked a chatty geometric sidekick, and asked the exact same question in unison, which was what this thing is and why it belongs anywhere near God of War. Nobody could even pin down whether Phranque ties into any mythology whatsoever. Norse, Greek, anything at all. The answer kept coming back empty. He talks, he floats around, and that's the whole resume. There's also Rue, an enchanted ribbon guardian voiced by Perlina Lau, though Rue never stood a chance of trending, because the entire crowd had locked onto the cube and started wondering aloud how it survived a single pitch meeting. Remember that this franchise sold itself on a bald war criminal tearing gods apart barehanded. The new marketing hook is a friendly shape with a celebrity voice attached, which makes the longtime fan base short-circuiting feel less like overreaction and more like reflex. The funniest reaction, and quietly the most damaging one, has nothing to do with the cube. It comes straight out of the timeline. Here's the trap the studio sprinted into. Laufey doesn't sit before or after the recent games, it runs parallel to God of War 2018 and Ragnarök, occupying the exact same stretch of time, which means that while Faye is in the Everywhen flinging monsters into the air with acrobatic combat, Kratos and Atreus are elsewhere in that very window, weeping over her body and scattering her ashes to the wind. Editors pounced immediately and spliced those two realities together. On one side, Faye alive and thriving, launching enemies skyward, and across from it, Kratos gutted, mourning the wife he believes is gone for good. The reveal accidentally reached back and turned some of the most solemn moments in 2018 and Ragnarök into straight comedy, and Kotaku came right out and crowned it one of the funniest memes the series has spawned in 21 years. Sit with that result for a second. Your serious new flagship launched, and its first achievement was making your old games unintentionally hilarious. That isn't fans being cruel, that's the premise doing the work, which is precisely why the jokes hold up. The man who created God of War showed up to bury it himself. David Jaffe, the mind behind the original 2005 game, watched the reveal live on stream and held absolutely nothing back, branding it uninspired and dull before flatly declaring it finished and predicting it won't come close to Sony's sales expectations. To Jaffe, the footage played like a fantasy novel rather than God of War, and he reached for the Forspoken comparison, which in gaming circles ranks among the cruelest insults available, while singling out the cube and what he called the little Disney character at the open as proof the series had misplaced its identity. His underlying argument actually cuts deep, and it's worth borrowing for this whole conversation. The old games, Jaffe points out, leaned on clear hooks, namely a fearsome Kratos, instantly recognizable mythology, and genuinely savage violence. Yank those three pillars out, and what's left is a story about a goddess who is gone, plus a cube, and his blunt verdict was that peeling the God of War name off the box would leave nobody talking about it at all. Now Jaffe did scramble to tidy things up the next day. Posting twice on June 3rd, he swore his reaction carried zero connection to culture wars, called himself the most progressive guy you know, and insisted his beef lived strictly with the trailer. Fair enough on its own terms, except the cleanup can't undo the core wound, because the franchise's literal creator looked at the thing and announced it no longer resembles what he built. None of that reads as a hashtag, it reads as a damage report. While the fire spread, the studio chose to brawl with the internet, and that's the moment a rough reveal curdled into a genuine meltdown. A Domino's Pizza account lobbed in a joke that a God of War without Kratos is like a pepperoni passion with no pepperoni, a clean and simple little dunk. Ignoring a pizza company would have been the obvious play. Instead, the official Santa Monica account fired back with, "Okay, thanks for the feedback, Domino's Pizza corporate account." Picture the scene, because a studio sitting on a project of this size just answered a pizza brand with sarcasm directly beneath its own controversial announcement. That energy doesn't signal confidence, it signals a team that already feels the room turning and starts swinging at whoever happens to stand closest. When your reveal nosedives so hard that you're trading shots with Domino's, the reveal has officially gone sideways. They did eventually roll out the corporate damage control, the whole bit about Kratos still being the God of War, plenty more stories left to tell, come along for the journey. Director Cory Barlog leapt in too, promising there will always be Kratos games on the way, which is its own quiet confession. A new game that genuinely thrilled people wouldn't need its makers constantly pledging that the old hero returns soon, because nobody comforts a crowd about something they already can't wait for. Here sits the argument that, to my mind, collapses the entire defense. And it's the angle most other videos breeze right past. One of the loudest complaints stayed dead simple, that this whole thing smells like a spin-off, a little side project. The studio shoved back hard on that. Director Ariel Lawrence went on record insisting Laufey is neither a prequel nor a spin-off, that it runs parallel to the main games, with Sony stamping it the next chapter of God of War, a mainline entry through and through. Chew on that claim, because it lands rougher than the spin-off label ever could. A spin-off would actually be the merciful version, since you could wander off and enjoy your fun little side story while the real series marched on with Kratos. By branding it a mainline chapter instead, they're telling you straight up that this is the true continuation of God of War, the flagship itself. And the flagship now stars a former corpse set inside an invented realm, narrated alongside a talking cube, running parallel to a story you already wrapped. The complaint didn't get diffused, the terrifying version of it got confirmed. Lawrence's own framing offers no rescue either. Her stated test boils down to whether the game is fun, which is a completely reasonable thing for a developer to feel in her gut. It's also the exact line you reach for when you've got no stronger answer for why Kratos sat out his own game. Let me play this straight, since the lazy outrage videos never will. A real case exists for this game, and I want to hand it to you before knocking it over. Faye is no random draft pick, because in the lore she's a Jotun, the former owner of the Leviathan axe that Kratos wields, and Ragnarök established that she once fought Thor to a standstill, while Norse myth pegs her as the mother of Loki herself. Her defenders started posting those accomplishments like a job resume built to silence the "why her" crowd, and on paper, the woman is genuinely terrifying. The combat looks sharp on top of that. There's even a legitimate point buried here that God of War has a long, ugly habit of letting every important woman in Kratos' life meet her end. So finally handing one of them the lead and letting her actually do things reads, in theory, as a fix for a real flaw. That's the Steelman, and here's why it still can't rescue the reveal. A character glowing in the backstory never automatically translates into a smart game, because Faye dominating the lore is exactly the reason fans wanted to play her at full power. Not as a spirit drifting through an invented afterlife, chaperoned by a cube, locked inside a story permanently chained to her own husband's grief. Even her solo outing can't shake free of Kratos, since the entire emotional gravity of her existence still orbits the man sobbing over her body one room away. They finally gave her the lead, and they still couldn't grant her a story that belonged to her alone. To everyone insisting the crowd's too harsh over a single demo for a game with no release date, that's true, and it stands as the fairest pushback going. You simply don't get to dictate how a reveal lands once it leaves your hands. Closing state of play. With this was a choice, the cube was a choice, branding it the next chapter was a choice, and picking a fight with dominoes was a choice. The reveal is the product you shipped that day, and that product got laughed off the stage. Here's where the whole saga settles. Sony took the most ruthless, instantly recognizable character in PlayStation history, parked him on the bench, and constructed their next flagship around his late wife, an invented realm and a talking cube. Then acted blindsided when fans, memers, and the franchise's own creator all reached the identical verdict at once. The grievance was never really about a woman leading the game because Faye could absolutely carry a great one. What actually stung is that they built a God of War that doesn't look, feel, or sound like God of War, insisted it was the main series regardless, and then defended that choice by bickering with a pizza chain. That's the story. That's why the memes practically wrote themselves, and that's why the line about a God of War game without the God of War stuck so hard, because nobody, the developers included, has produced a single convincing reason why it isn't exactly that. Maybe the finished game flips the whole narrative and proves everyone wrong. Right now, though, the internet stared down this reveal and called it finished on arrival, and the internet had a point.